Hello, everyone, and good morning from me right now here. It's one of my favorite spots in the morning for going to school to just sit and read a bit and pray. But I have not shared yet about our second week of the Bible for Life. It's already, Thursday again now, so I'm a little bit behind. But last week we talked about the Torah. We had a teacher who has definitely been largely invested into a book that, like, from I think a first sight, seems like a hard book to understand, full of laws and stories and things. But we've been gaining more understanding in the book, and I can tell you, it's amazing that when you study this book, when you study the Torah and you go deeper into it, definitely you discover more of God's character. You can see who He is and that He is the same today, yesterday, and forever. It's not a God. He's not a God that changes from Old to New Testament. It's not Jesus who's the good guy and God is the bad guy. No, God the Father was already there in the garden, and He is there in all the laws, in all the rules. Actually, in that we've been doing studies on different laws. Like we had to make detailed studies and go in depth about, like, okay, what does this actually say, and what does this mean to the original hearer and the original reader. And in that, we've just been able to see God's goodness actually in the law, because God did not give us rules just so we could keep rules and just to make life difficult. No, actually, He's the author of life, and He knows best how life needs to be lived. Just one little thing I would love to highlight is just the build-up of the books that we've been seeing. In Genesis, God creates His people. He gives us a purpose and a goal, and He says, "This is what I made you for." And there He also chooses His people. Like when things go wrong, He decides that He wants to restore, and He chooses the people through whom He will do that. Then there's the Exodus, it's the deliverance. God shows, I'm a deliverer, even though, like, they get caught up in Egypt, and Egypt in a way symbolizes sin, and we're caught up in sin, and we don't know how to do life without Him. Actually, He comes there to deliver us. Then the next book is Leviticus, and I think that's always been the biggest riddle to me. Like, what is this? What's happening? But God shows that He wants to live among him. Like He gives Moses in Exodus, He gives him the tabernacle, and He says, "I want to dwell among you." But then He dwells among them, and the question is, but how can He live? How can He live among a people that is so, in a way, defiled? And God, who is so pure, how can people come to Him? And so He gives the guidelines about, like, how the priests can come before Him, how the people can be cleansed of their sins, and how they can start living a holy life again. And then Numbers is a book where He starts to walk them into the promised land. He's like, he's that at that time the people can come into His, like Moses can come into His presence, the high priest can come into His presence, and the people can stand before Him again, and He starts teaching them. But once we start teaching, when we learn to walk in the Spirit and to walk in His ways, to walk out our salvations, we make mistakes, we fall into unbelief, we stumble. But yet God shows that He is gracious and He's walking with us. And actually in Deuteronomy, it kind of ends with showing how God makes a covenant with His people, where He says, like, I have freed you and I'm your Lord. This is how we live it out. This is how we live together in relationship. And it's a beautiful image, like how God walks with Israel, but also how He walks with each one of us, how He delivers us, how He sets us free, how He shows how we can live in His presence, but also how we can bring that into our promised land and how we can walk into the promise that He's given us. So it's just a little snapshot. If you are more interested, I would definitely encourage you to do something like a BCC or Bible for Life course that I'm doing here right now, or just study the Torah. Honestly, it's really good. Hope you're blessed. I hope you had a good Easter, and see you next week.